I'll just show you the new room we've decided to do our videos in. And there's the lake out there, little ducks come to see and watch. They'll get up and sit on the fence down there and see what I'm doing. They're very interested, very intelligent duck. And swans. The swans tend to fall off, but that's all right. All right, now what I'm going to talk about today is I've been asked a few questions regarding the Earth and the age of the Earth, etc. And basically, I want to talk about the sun and the Earth itself. Well, I didn't figure on there, it's a bit sloppy, but have to take my time. I can usually do a pretty good circle, but this one's better. Still right. And what happens is there's animals on the Earth in the old times that a recent discovery in Argentina places an animal about over 100 feet long and estimated to be around 100 tons. So a blue whale, they're the largest animals on the Earth today, and they cannot come out the water. Any small whale who beaches itself, it'll die of suffocation because it hasn't got the muscles to actually expand its lungs. So what happened, the Earth comes through from the heavenly realm, as does the sun. The Earth came first. So the Earth has been suggested must have been spinning faster. No. The day is 7 days and a 24-hour day. So what happened? Well, if you've got animals that weigh 100 tons and can walk around and munching on trees that are fossilised and can be several hundred feet high, the lower branches are 50 feet above the ground, there are fossilised trees that are something like this. Then you've got your layers of sediment laid down by the flood, but scientists who are evolutionists won't accept that. They've got to say, well, the Earth is billions of years old, based on Einstein's B equals mc squared. So you've got E equals mc squared. And physicists get tears in the eyes because it's so beautiful. Hello. You're not accounting for the fact that gravity from the centre of the sun, the light is pouring through, and the Earth was created before the sun. But when the sun was created, the temperature at the middle of the sun is estimated to be 25 million degrees. When it hits the corona, it goes down to 11,000 degrees. So what's happened? Well, suddenly the light comes out like that. There's nothing out there except the Earth, no stars, no nothing. Because we're talking creation here. So that there's nothing to slow down the speed of light. It reaches here and it then pushes apart like a train being pushed from behind. They want to compress, but the first carriage has got less pressure on it, next carriage got more pressure, next carriage more pressure. So if there was rubbers in between, they'd be getting slowly crushed together. In the same way, light is like that. So what happened? Well, obviously this is wrong. That's entirely a finance job for the universities. You can't get tenure unless you're a professor that agrees with the particular bullshit that the Zionists want you to preach. But we have the 25 number, and the Earth was circumference of 25,000 miles. Now, the Great Pyramid, the base is 25 years wide. Now, why is that? Well, four sides of the pyramid was 3, 6, 5, 2, 4.24, and that's 100 solar years. So the distance across here is 9131.06. Now, I realise that this is for the viewing audience, but it's also going up as radio. So if I tend to keep on referring to say, look, you better go and have a look on YouTube where it's uploaded so that you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Because it is very complex. Alright, so 9131.06 on one side of the pyramid in pyramid inches converts to 25 years. So we've got the 25 number again. Now the face angle of the pyramid is 51,5114.3. The descending passage angle is 26,18,97. You add the two together and you get 777, well, let's do it over here, 7770113. That is Lord in Hebrew, and that is how many years that Lamech lived. So I was talking about the flood. The pyramid was built before the flood. We've got Enoch, where the Essenes religion, the oldest religion, comes from. And his son was Methuselah. So you've got all these ages if you start running together. 969 years at Methuselah. And then you've got, after him, you've got Lamech, 777. And that's a key number in the creation, because the age difference between my youngest daughter and my youngest stepdaughter is 777 days, which is in years is 2.127 years, and that number in Hebrew is Zia. And my stepdaughter's mother, which was my third wife, she was Mary Magdalene. The word Mary means stubborn, and out of Mary was cast 7 devils. Okay. So when you die, you're garnished clean. The same thing can be with a baptism. If you're a person that says, oh, sorry for what I've done, I want to be forgiven. So you get dipped, and then you're forgiven, and the devils are cast out. So in the scripture it talks about the devil, demons, when they're cast out, they wait until that person's born again. That doesn't mean born again, it means to be rebirthed to the earth. Right? So this is where they change everything in the mad Christian world. They born again as this, born again as that. And what you'll have is you cast out 7 demons, 7 more will come back times 7. Because each demon that comes back brings back 49, making the person worse than what it was when his soul or her soul was garnished clean. Alright, so the 515114.3, if we go to the Milky Way galaxy now, and we say it's 100,000 light years wide, why is it 100,000 light years wide? That was only discovered recently, but it's based on E = mc squared. That's fine. And at 100,000 light years wide, there is a position where the Earth is going in a circle in an orbit around the Milky Way galaxy, and the time, you've got to be careful. Every time I say something, many years ago I did this, they'll then change the encyclopedias. Alrighty, so the orbital was 2, 5, million years. It takes us back to the base, it takes us back to the temperature of the sun. Doesn't mean it's been doing that for 250 million years. What it is a mature creation. In other words, you can take a photograph of a plane flying past, doesn't mean you built it. And this is what we're talking about here. The creation is, bang, you're in position, you're in business, and that's it. Now the distance is reported to have been 3 light years out to the orbit of the Earth. So you take that times 2 and you've got 6. Right? Now in the Bible you've got giants in those days. Og was one of them. And Og, I'll just see if I've got it here somewhere. I find with a computer, if you're doing something, you can do it all day long. As soon as you get in front of the camera, it won't work. So it's quite interesting. So we've got Solomon received 666 talents of gold from his wives, and in the NIV it is written 666, so it's in 3 verses, ending with Revelation 13:18. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents. So that's said twice, and then the last time is in Revelation. However, you add the 3 verses up and put them into a Babylonian number counting system, and what it gives you is the number 2413. When you go into the Strong's Concordance, and many of you don't know what it is, you'll find them in most libraries. You can get it online, but it's usually altered to give it extra numbers. For example, the word Lord is found in 6,666 verses, and why is that so? Because it's Babylonian. So the King James had his plea ignored by Elizabeth, who, when he was 21 years of age, he was King of Scotland, and he begged Queen Elizabeth not to behead his mother for treason. And it was a set-up, of course, as all is in English. And so what happened was he begged her not to behead his mother. When he becomes king, finally through the efforts of William Shakespeare, whose pen name was William Shakespeare, but he was Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxley. It's a hereditary title. Now it has been suggested in a recent movie that he was the illegitimate son and of Elizabeth I, but I'm sorry, it didn't happen. A hereditary title is very important. You don't get it unless you're absolutely squeaky clean. And there's no way in the world that he could have become the 17th Earl of Oxley because it's hereditary. And the Puritans sure would have found out about if Elizabeth would have had a baby, and he wouldn't have got the job, that's for sure. So this is a very important point. What they've done, they've taken the, I'll give you one. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not 666. And that changes the value of the English gematria, so you put it into the 3 verses into the Babylonian numbering system, and it gives you 2413, and these people are very sneaky. And then you go back into your concordance, look up the 2413, and it says sacred and holy. Well, that's the last thing what they are. Alright, so what we have then, for only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath? I'm talking about this there. Of the children of Ammon. 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. So that's a cubit there, a metre there, and it's roughly 21 inches. That makes the bed 15 feet by 6.5 feet, or just under 15 metres, and 2 metres wide. So a pretty big fella. Now go to Goliath, 2 Samuel 21:20, and there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines. There Elthanan, the son of Jerah-Regem, a Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam, and there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number. And he also was born to the giant. So, these people were killed off, their ancestors were killed off in the flood. Because literally, the fallen angels, an angel is very similar to a human being. You could be, well, you're looking at God. So you could be looking at an angel, and an angel could walk up to you and you wouldn't know the difference. If you were, say, 18 foot tall, it's probably a dead giveaway. But in those days, these huge angels decided that they wanted to go into the women that were beautiful and were big women, right? So as they were big men, they're not talking about normal sized women today, the women in those days were also very big. So they had offspring of them. And the offspring is what was the problem. This produced the giants with the 6 fingers deformities and 6 toes. So in the book talking about Moses, he actually cuts off the big toe and the thumb or whatever, it reduces the giant's hands down to being 5 fingers, 5 toes. There's a code in that which I won't go into, but primarily these are parables talking about real things from an imagined point of view from Babylon to try and explain and convince the masses that they're going to dominate because these are demons that they've reincarnated from. So when a demon died in the flood, that was inside a person, right? That person's dead, giant, the flood occurred, and then they're reborn to the earth coming down through Ham. Alright, so that is reality, whether you like it or not. If you don't believe any of this built Bible stuff, which is, a lot of it is rubbish, and you don't believe in after death, which is stupid, many people have died, had a near-death experience and come back, in particular little children. And their cases have been documented, and in particular in India where it happens all the time, children are born and they know who their mother was and they might live in another town or down the street and they want to go and see their relatives and they know everything about them. So there's authenticated cases of this type of thing. So we have the flood. Now in the flood we got Noah finally after a given amount of time. He opens up the hatch and he stares out and he sees the sun and the stars for the first time. Why? Well, the earth had an firmament over it. And this was water. You think, well, okay. Now, if you have this over the top and the flood came, when Mars belted into the earth and all the water rushed off Mars onto the earth, punched out the moon, which solidified in space, and the ratio between that is 3, 6, 6, 6, right? So the moon divided into the width of the earth is 366. That reduced the size of the earth down to 24,904, depending on where you measure it from, this way or that way. And we then have the radius of the earth being 3963, which is the island of Patmos in Greek, concordance numbers, and we have John on the island of Patmos, where it gives you the revelation of the coming Lord. Alright, so what happened? Something caused this with the impact, but something caused this to create dust in the air, and all as a firmament formed around a crystallized raindrop. And the impact caused the gravity to change. So when the gravity changed, meaning these then were heavier and could fall. As they fall, they come closer to the Earth's surface, and what happens is it turns to rain, and the rain occurred. So the firmament turned to rain, Mars hit the Earth, the water from Mars rushed off, there was a deluge, all the firmament disappeared. Noah opens up after a given time of everything settled down, and voila, he sees the sun. Right, now, something occurred that made the giants of old, like a giant that's been found, giant dinosaur been found in Argentina, 100 tons, 120 tons, 130 tons, big one. And it's 100 feet long or more. And it could reach up 50, 60 feet and eat these huge trees, which I said have been fossilised when the flood occurred, and there's layers of sediment that's occurred and fossilised the tree in these layers of sediment. So therefore there's no way that a tree fossilised 100 feet high within several layers, and this of course was caused by the flood itself, dropping all the sediment. So this, everything changed. What did I do with my rubber? Everything changed, and you have this enormous amount of water on the Earth. So then we go to modern times, and people were getting smaller and smaller as the gravity increased. So, what was happening? Well, today we've got the Dr. Ballard, who was a pretty clever man, and he was given the CIA's deep water bathysphere so he could go down and look for a submarine that had been lost to the Russians. And they wanted a nuclear rockets off it, and they actually built a ship with the great claws down to pick up 12,000 feet below, to pick up the Russian submarine. But it did break in half when it was bringing it up, so they got a bit of it. So after that, his reward was to use the same type of machinery, and this time he's in the Mediterranean, and he found that if he goes down 168 feet, on the water that's now going down 168 feet, the former coastlines of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea have townships and cities and dwellings all built around the edge of the water, which is naturally because you do fishing. Huh? Now in the Mediterranean, up towards the coast of Palestine, it's 16,000 feet deep, or 4,500, 5,000 metres deep. That's our. And what happened in the old days, before the flood, the Nile River, as everything is settling down, but before that, Nile River flowed through the Nile Delta, which is something like that, and off, and then it dropped 9,000 feet straight down, the highest waterfall that we've ever seen, and the level of the Mediterranean was this point here, 168 feet down, when the area opened up via the Straits of Gibraltar. But in the early stages, before all this happened, before there's any opening, before any of that happened, we've got a waterfall that was 9,000 feet deep. So with the increase of water, the water level came up. Now over time, what we have then, this is the very early days. Now we've got the Straits of Gibraltar, the Rock of Gibraltar up here. It is opened up by the impact of the flood to bring that up. And the water comes in and levels off at the present level, and the flow of water is enough to supply energy for all of Europe. You know that? You're worried about whether you're going to have nuclear reactors or not. All you've got to do is tap the amount of water. It's 14 kilometres wide and it's coming in. So all these things are changing in historical time. And we've got these very large people, mentioned as the last one is Og with the 6 fingers on each hand. and that gets you into the Babylonian numbering system, and that is why King James, when he was fiddling with the numbers and the repetition of various special words like Lord, he's giving you a clue, because it's in 6,666 verses. Okay. Now, the word Jesus, 942 verses. So now we've got a Bible to work with. It's holy because King James was a man who was the first king from the times of Edward I, who stole the rock of the scone, which is the sacred pillar that Jacob slept on. Another parable if you like. Genesis 28:11. So he saw the angels descending and ascending up. And they call it Jacob's ladder. He's even made movies about it. So what we end up with is something that's holy. But not in what it says, what it identifies. We've got all this rubbish that comes out of the Babylonian numbering system. And so he says, I'm getting even with the Freemasons, right? Because they beheaded his mother. And he was a Freemason himself. From a child, he was taught by Freemasons. So his mother could never send him any gifts or something like that. But he was also the inheritor of France because his mother did previously marry the King of France and he died. And so she inherited France. So she was a very, very big player in all this, how the manipulation of her abdicating in favour of her son. And his name, they all spoke French, was Jacques. So we call it Jack, which is Jacob, which is James. Do you catch my drift? So when they put the flag together, you got the cross of Jesus, then you got all these other ones loaded into it, and you got the Union of Jack. Very, very pleasant looking flag. Now it's been taken over, of course, because when the English were dealing with the Spanish, they were licensing men to become pirates, and they would go out and steal the gold coming from the Americas that the Spanish had conquered with the conquistadors after they had won by being clever over the English. So as the ships sailed back in, they fly this. Hello. This is supposed to be representing Jesus, right? After all, the skull and bones has got nothing to do with Jesus, but as far as they're concerned, it has. Everything to do with their God, which is Lucifer. So to control the masses, they have the Lucifer Bibles and the translations, hundreds of them, 36,000 different denominations around the world, all under the yoke of the original Protestants, which is dominated by the British, who conquered by evil all of the nations of the earth. So they fly the skull and bones flag, right, every time the ship pulls back into port. So you've got Obama, and then you've got Bush, George Bush Sr., whose mother was Barbara Bush, who was the daughter of Aleister Crowley. The most evil man on earth. And you Americans are putting up with it. I'm amazed. I really am. You vote for this arsehole. And then you've got Kerry, who ran against him. He's skull and bonesman. You've got George Bush Sr., skull and bonesman. You've got Obama, skull and bonesman. Skull and bones have a name for each of their men that they tap and push up into senior positions throughout their demonic realm. And George Bush Jr., his name was Temporary. Then you got Obama, his name is Undertaker. So they're trying their best to start a nuclear war. So in order to outsmart the world, because they're Christians, I am a Christian. I wouldn't do nothing evil. What they do is they sell these nuclear reactors like Fukushima, that store all of the spent rods up the top. During the Carter administration, got another two over here, they're ready to go. You can't work there because of the radiation from here, so this is going to collapse, it's got to go. Then you've got the aquifer, mountain, water flows underneath, and if this drops down through here, it'll create an explosion that will wipe out certainly Japan, parts of China, and I don't know why China's not going in and taking over. It's really got me totally bamboozled. However, by detonating a trench around the whole lot, you can cut this aquifer off and have it flow down to Tokyo or around out to sea. But under you want a hole drilled straight down to the molten mantle. And the molten mantle down here is 2200 degrees Celsius. And this comes down, when the stuff melts down, it's 10,700 approximately degrees Fahrenheit. So half that Celsius, it's got 5,000 degrees, it'll melt through the rock. So the idea is to let it all go and into the molten mantle and get rid of it. That's one way. The other way is to use what was developed during the Carter administration, and that was to burn all the energy out of these spent rods. And it uses up 7% at the moment, but they could use them up entirely. The science is there. So, you don't build any more of these bloody reactors, but you can use up all of the rods. Therefore, you don't have to store the spent rods up top, where it's nice and high, so it's up 6 or 7 feet, floors in the air, and you get an earthquake, especially in Japan, shake it all. And because the Americans are doing this with HAARP technology and dropping off the back of the carrier, Ronald Reagan, they just have the thing, they're just sailing around, the captain presses a button, the thing drops from underneath because it's been installed, and they didn't get out quick enough because when the radiation hit, the radiator didn't boat itself. So what I'm saying is you bring an iron ore and you cover these things over with iron ore. This is already developed in Australia by the Japanese, and the ships are already going. So all your Toyotas that's made is from Australian iron ore. And dump it with iron ore, which is about 60 to 65, 70% in the rock, and you can draw an arc on it with a welding machine. So you then take the 100% iron ore and then you cloud it in, and that will solidify in the sea. It's wet, get a rain on it, whatever, and it'll solidify. And you can have it 30 feet thick of a shell of iron ore that is using up the radiation at the same time, if you don't use what I just said, what was developed during the time of Jimmy Carter. So they're not going to do that either, are they? It's too easy. So we've just done a radio program that advises from the United States extra special people that know all about what's going on and have been warning the world. Rena Ludlow, for example, talked about Agenda 21, it's been on for 1964, how they're going to poison all the food, poison all the clothing. When you go buy a new piece of clothing, you put it on, it's got all this formaldehyde in it, and that's also deadly. So in the protocols of Zion, we're going to get you through your clothes, through your food, through your churches, through your atmosphere. And that's why you've got chemtrails. I'm amazed how nations will allow planes to drop chemtrails on the basis of the science say that this is a shield to keep the radiation out from the sun because it's the Earth's heating up. What a load of bullshit. Right? The Earth is getting cooler. So let's get back to what's happening then. We have this Earth situation where we are actually heating up. Okay, no, that's not too good. Oh, fair enough. Something like that. And the Earth has been changed in size. It's taken on the magnetic field of Mars when it belted it. That's why the gravity on Mars is so low and the gravity on the Moon is low, but the Earth's gravity is high. And at the centre of all matter, in particular the Earth, there's a little white hole. And scientists will tell you that you've got the Milky Way galaxy in the centre of it, you've got a bulge like that, and they say, oh, this is a black hole. So how can you have a bulge at the centre when a black hole pulls all matter into it, when in fact it's the other way around? If you've got a bulge, it's not been drawn into it to go into the centre, it's the other way around. It's been pushing material out, and it's very young. So what I said before about the speed of light when there's, if you take 454 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, what do you got? That's the height of the pyramid up to, in feet, but it's also the average height of the landmass. So if you filled in all the mountains, lowered them out and filled in all of the valleys and so forth, you'd have a height of landmass 454 feet. So they don't want you to know all this stuff, because if you know that, it's how God did it. Yeah. Right. Okay. So we have 5151 14.3, that angle times pi gives you 1618 blah blah blah, and that's the Fibonacci number, which is life. All life is a spiral, right? You see it, just look it up, a nautilus in the in your, which they can't ban everything. If everything I'm telling you you can't find a little bit of on the internet, just look up nautilus, shellfish, and it is, or a snail. Look at the side of a snail. Flowers are the same. Fibonacci is very, very common. So, looks like we have our dear wife coming back, and Joel. This is sort of an experimental run to see how I make out on this new speaker we've got, which I'll show you. It's a professional speaker. So, that's it there. So we're going to see what it's like and whether I can keep my mind on talking to a radio audience as opposed to yapping on about things that you can only see on the screen, because I have a tendency to do that. So, okay, so the gravitational field increased. Mars, of course, tremendous impact, stopped this pouring through, therefore the molecular attraction of atoms increased and the gravity increased, and therefore all animals that were huge during the flood, when this impact occurred, they all collapsed in a heap because they couldn't stand up. It's like taking a blue whale prancing around the beach, all of a sudden it's 100 tons of water down onto it by gravity, and the thing cannot move. So the gravity increased by about 10 times. So there you go. Clear as mud.